Maybe.
Okay, so you gotta call it to order.
She chugged a Red Bull.
In this chair. We'll get this meeting started.
Okay, so Bill is on his way so that everybody is aware. I believe all we have is Apex this morning. I know that there are some questions that Helen for sure and probably Jim have on some of the information. I don't know if you guys want to start there before going into what Lauren had sent everybody. That's going to be your guys' call. And make sure your mics are on and they're pulled up to you, please.
I think we just go over what Lauren sent us, and then we can ask questions as we go.
Okay, great. So the first piece to be decided are the premium equivalents. I had mentioned that once we have all the final contracts in place, that our recommendation would most likely be a rate hold to the premium equivalents. When we did that math, I still believe that that is the direction we should go. So no change in premium equivalents for the next plan year. If we're looking at midpoint claims, we're projecting a minus 3.6. And if we were at max liability, we would be a 5.1% increase. So that rate hold is kind of right in the middle of midpoint and max. As a third-year self-funded plan, I think that's pretty conservative.
So what number what do you think our claims are going to be? What's the expected claim?
So if we're looking at so this has everything baked into it. This has the expected claims, all the fixed costs, the new organ transplant policy, all of our projections. So that's everything. And that very bottom row are the suggested premium equivalents at a rate hold. What we did was the HDHP is 5% lower in premium equivalent than the PPO. So we valued that 5% higher on the premium equivalents.
So on this sheet you're talking about right here, right?
Yep, very bottom row. The first plan is the HDHP, the second plan is the PPO. And then
the second plan has no employee numbers.
Yeah, so we just put them all in the HDHP for premium equivalence sake. Knowing that the plans are actually valued very closely to each other, once you add those HSA dollars in, it brings the plans into almost in line with being the different value of the plan. So it really comes down to preference. Both plans are very rich for your employees.
So you're suggesting we have the PPO plan and the HSA plan have the same rates for each employee?
No, so if people did jump over to the PPO plan, then this could get skewed a little bit, but when we're looking at premium equivalents, again, with like just a 5% difference in value, we just put everyone into the HDHP to illustrate.
When you say the HDHP, you mean the PPO one?
No.
Deductible.
Yep, health plan. Yep, so that one's the one that pairs.
Okay.
But they're all high deductible.
No, the PPO is not a HDHP.
Which one's the HSA? Is that the
HDHP.
So
yeah.
because this page, last time we had two choices. We had a 5,000 and 10,000. There wasn't another deductible discussed.
So they both of the deductibles are $3,500 for an individual, $7,000 for a family. That's the same for both plans.
Okay.
It's just that on the HDHP, you meet your deductible before the copay phase starts. So you're on the hook for that $3,500 before you start.
So they're both
accessing.
high deduct. This is the confusing part because that makes no sense.
They both
have high deductibles. The PPO, you have your copays until you get to your amount, the HSA, you pay 100% until you get to 3,500 if you're single and 7,000 if you're whatever. Then you get your copays up to your max. So you can't say that they're not high deductible. They're both high deductible.
The way that the plan functions is what makes it a high deductible health plan. They both have deductibles, but it's not technically a high deductible health plan unless you require.
They're the same deductible. How are they not high?
It's based on how the plan functions. So the high deductible health plan is the one that you have to pay 100% of your costs until you get to that. That's what makes it a high deductible health plan.
And that's the HSA.
Yes.
Okay, so when you talk about the HDHP, you're talking about the HSA. Okay, we got to learn the terminology here because when you send all this stuff, it's very confusing
So
to
you
what's what
need
here.
to talk in HSA and PPO.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody
Yeah.
listening, everybody
Yeah, she started saying
knows.
high deductible, it makes,
That's what's making this so frustrating because
so both
not
plans have
apples to
out-of-pocket max of individual at 5, family at 10,000, correct?
For max out of pocket, yes, correct.
No. Got that?
yeah, for
I
max,
really got that. So
For the
I wanna make
max
sure we're
out of
all on the same
pocket.
page here. The BPO.
This has a 5% increase.
So the 5% differential in the premium equivalents, we're giving that PPO a 5% higher value.
Does that mean to the employee it's 5% higher?
So there's, yeah, the first thing we need to decide is where we want to set the premium equivalents, and then we'll go into the employee contribution piece.
So I want to talk about that for a second. So last year, I'm looking at this sheet here that you gave us. It says that we expected it 3.3 million, correct?
Let me go, so we're looking at the same thing here.
Down in F, column 1, page 3.
Total fixed and expected 3.97, that's correct.
But the expected claims was 3.3.
For claims only, yes, correct.
So why is there a $600,000 difference? Did we expect the 3.3 and ended up getting the 3.9?
So that is with the fixed cost added in. The expected claims liability is 3.3, and then when you add the fixed costs in, that's what gets us to 3.97. So the admin, stop loss costs.
Okay. And you're wanting to only increase, what was the year before? What was in 23, the first year? What was our actually claims?
The actual claims or
Yeah.
the expected?
I would like to know the difference. What was the percentage increase from year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to, so we can have a trend of how much we really need to be increasing it? Because if this number determines pretty much everything else that we're going off of.
Yes. I will need just a couple of minutes to get logged in to pull
That's
that.
fine. I mean, is 5% seems sort of low with how healthcare is increasing across the
Yes,
board.
it is below trend, correct. With a blended trend for you guys, we're looking at about 10% for trend. So we were able to get some pretty strong contracts. While I'm pulling that, is there anything else, any other questions on that?
So if I understand, you're saying we should expect a 10% increase?
So actually, our projected increase was over 20%, and the renewal was 28.1%, or 28.3 if we're looking at expected. So we're actually proposing a rate hold. So no increase on the premium equivalents.
But we're expecting to have more costs.
No, overall, we're expecting to keep cost status quo. Because we were previously budgeted to maximum liability, Kellen, if we went to maximum liability again, you can see that third row of boxes. Do you see the 5.1% increase? If we stayed on the premium equivalent sheet,
Yeah.
if we stayed maximum to maximum, we'd be looking at a 5.1% increase. That's budgeting for the worst case scenario year.
Okay.
But you don't have to budget to worst-case scenario once you start to develop a reserve in your claims funding.
We have no reserve. I thought we were over, my understanding is we keep having to put in more at the end of the year because we're not.
We were negative last year.
No, that was the prior self-insurance. We're not negative.
This year, we're not, okay.
We're not negative since we started the self-insurance a
Okay.
year or so ago. It was the prior, I don't know how many years ago that was, but
Do you mind sharing what the reserve is?
So we're not in the hole right now. I thought we were in the hole. Okay.
How much?
I don't have that right at the moment. I'm logging in, but, I mean, I can tell you what we have in the fund, but we still have
Outstanding costs.
bills and stuff to pay.
Sure.
So,
If your reserve is greater than $250,000, then you have the difference between holding PEs and max liability. Does that make sense?
between what?
If you hold your premium equivalents at the 4.95 million, and let's say you do have a worst-case scenario year and we hit that 5.2 million, as long as you have a reserve of 250,000 from the previous years, then you have enough of a reserve to cover between holding PEs and a worst-case scenario year.
So you're saying that we need to budget off of 4.7? Is that the midpoint?
So I'm looking at the very bottom, and it's 4.95. That is holding premium equivalents.
So you're budgeting off of 4.9?
Yep.
Okay.
Where's, I'm missing the 4.
I mean, it's 4.951.
I was looking for percentage.
Oh, no. $4,905,001,695. And who comes up with that number? Is that what you guys are
Yes.
predicting?
Yep. But I will also say that we have the contract terms plugged in from the stop-loss contract. So this is not as much guesswork as a projection. This is actually utilizing the contract terms from the PHP contract to project those numbers forward.
Okay, so then what's this on page 3 again? We're jumping back over here. It had expected annual cost at 4.1 million for the plan that we chose proposal 2. I guess I'm confused where these numbers are. Why did they say 4.2 and we're saying 4.9? But you're saying that PHP, PHP is the numbers you're going off of.
So we are looking at, this has a combination of this contract as well as your admin contract. It also has the organ transplant policy built into it. So it does have a few extra pieces outside of just the stop-loss contract that we added in. We also added in the cost of the HSA contributions to the employees' plans. So that's what the difference is.
Well, okay. What did you have calculated as the contributions for? You talking about what we're going to contribute to?
So these numbers don't have any employee contributions yet.
Okay. Then when you said it included that, what do you mean by that?
So we took the value of the contribution that DeKalb would put into the employees' accounts, and we valued that into the premium equivalents, which is why it has a very similar valuation to the PPO plan. Because when you add those dollars in.
What numbers did you use on our contribution?
What we
haven't
discussed.
talked about that at all. I mean, we talked a little bit, but we haven't.
Utilized what was previously done. So if you do want to make a change to the employee contribution on the HSA, it would change these numbers.
Okay, can you give us those numbers that you used?
Okay, wait, I need to clarify something.
Yeah.
So, on this sheet, is this the one you were asking did or did not have employee numbers in it?
It does not. It does not have any of the employees' contributions. This is the all-in cost. So whatever the employee contributes will
This is
reduce
employee and county.
that. Yes.
So it
Everything.
does have the employee amount in it, it's just not broken out.
What I'm saying is the employee contribution isn't taken out of it. So if we're saying the employee gets
Right, but that's,
1,000.
what you said is totally not what anybody would have gotten. So this sheet
Apologies.
has the actual premium of what it's gonna cost with employee and county together.
Matching, so if we give them a 700, they match 700, that includes that, or no?
That part's not in there yet.
Okay,
The HSA contribution,
it's not in there.
but the
Because we haven't
premium
decided if we're
amounts-
going, what we're doing there, if we're doing that or not, so.
Right, you haven't
I don't
gotten
have
there.
those numbers in there if we don't.
You haven't gotten there yet.
Okay,
Yeah, at the last meeting, we discussed the 700 employee only, 1,000 for employee child, employee spouse, and 1,200 for family. So that's what you guys asked us to put in for the value, so we did do that, but we can absolutely change that.
you slow down again, what was that?
700 for employee only, 1,000 for employee child, employee spouse, and 1,200 for family.
And Kellen, that is on I have that broken down in my spreadsheets. The second page at the bottom.
750, you have 750.
Oh, okay.
But I just wanted to make sure that whatever that is included into the overall cost too.
It is,
'Cause
yes.
that's gonna be a chunk of money.
Oh, there, okay.
So to your previous question, Kellen, last year, there was a 42.6% increase from the 23, 24 to 24, 25.
What's the numbers? What was what did you guys expect and what was the actual?
So our expected, total fixed and expected was 3.789 million. Max liability, let me know when you're ready, I know.
Good.
Max liability was 4.58 million. And we are running at 99% of our max liability. So we're right at that threshold.
So last year we went for thinking it'd be 4.5 million and we're gonna hit about 4.5 million.
Yes. Or that's what we're trending towards, and there's a few months left, but yes. I will say that large increase, about 20 to 25% of that was maturing the contracts and maturing the claims, because that 23, 24 was our first year self-funded, and we were an immature contract, meaning the claims lag from leaving your fully insured plan. There were several months where there were not mature claims because they hadn't hit yet. So that's why there was such a large increase. There was also a large claims increase too, over $1 million in expected claims. So it's a mixture of high claims and maturing that contract, why that went up so significantly.
Susan, do you know what our reserve is then? Just
So-
ballpark.
Well, the balance in the fund right now is 2.3 million, but we have multiple things that still will be paid for. So I don't know.
So it does sound like, even having to pay for those things, it does sound like you have an ample reserve. So I definitely feel comfortable with the recommendation of not changing premium equivalents. And guys, I know this is a ton of math, so if I can explain this any differently, I'm happy to, or if you want me to slow down on any piece, please do. I want to be a partner with you guys. I certainly don't want to frustrate you.
So if I run a report from July 1st of '24 till now, we have spent like $4,061,000.
This is a report from, sorry, when?
July 1st of '24 till now.
And does that include the stop-loss reimbursements? Because my guess is that it does not, with that being almost as high as your max liability.
Well, say that again.
Your stop loss?
The 4 million is just what we have spent.
Okay, so then you also have stop loss reimbursements coming back for your large claimants that have
Yeah.
exceeded the 125K.
They're in here. I'd have to go through and piece it out, because like we have 6.3 million that have been receipted in, but all of the payroll withholdings from the employees in the county, they all come over every pay. It's not just, and then everything gets paid out of there. So it's not just the stop loss. I would have to go through and piece these together to tell you which one that is.
Over co-pays last meeting,
We did.
page 10 of the packet.
Talking co-pays at the doctor?
Well, that's what I wanted. Co-pays is this all the co-pays that we have on our plan is what's listed here, or do we have inpatient, outpatient services, therapy?
So those,
Because on our current plan, we have all these other co-pays on this, but then on this, it only shows,
so this
4 or
shows
5
like a
of them.
summary. When we go to set up the plan with PHP, we'll actually get into the plan design to the tune of a 200-page document. They have your plan design, and they're utilizing that to build out your current plans. So there are items that do have co-pays now. We will ensure that that matches when we go to PHP, unless it was a range like Onsurist, in which case we will have to land on a number.
okay, because we have inpatient service, which is a $200 to $3,000 copay.
Yeah,
Outpatient service of $40 to $3,000.
yep,
Therapy, occupational, physical, speech, 10 to 75. And complex imaging, MRI, CT is $125 to $775.
yeah. So
We
my,
have to, I mean, wouldn't those have to be decided on to be added into the plan also?
not necessarily, because the main thing that's going to impact your plan design, or the main thing that's going to impact the cost on your plan design are the deductibles and max out of pocket. Those little kind of like, I'm not going to say ticky-tacky because there's some big dollar amounts there, but those are not going to impact your overall cost as much as these major plan design pieces. And a lot of those that were a range of like $1 to $5,000, that's hard. My recommendation would be to make it deductible and co-insurance. So if you are inpatient, you'll satisfy your deductible and then it'll be covered at 100%.
So if somebody, as an example, has a baby, they're going to be paying $5,000 for that baby because that's the max out of pocket.
So actually, the individual deductible is that $3,500 and it goes right to 100% co-insurance after that. So an individual on any plan will be on the hook for that $3,500 and then they'll be done as far as that baby being born is concerned.
But then if they have something else, then they have to pay another $1,500 to that 5, correct?
They only have co-pays left after that point. So they would have to get a heck of a lot of visits to accumulate to the 5,000, but yes, it is possible. Let's say several ER visits, you could reach that. But if it's another inpatient stay, outpatient procedure, those would be covered at 100% because they're deductible and co-insurance, and your deductible's already been reached.
So you're suggesting for the inpatient, outpatient therapy and the complex imaging, it should be deductible with co-insurance.
Yes.
This is what I printed off at home. This is what we currently have. Comparing our deductibles to what was talked about. Okay. So I wanted to make sure. The question I was asked was if I have a baby, with what I was shown on this copay, should I be able to pay anything? So I'm clear what they'd have to pay for a hospital. So this is, you can look at that. That's currently what we have now. but I wanted to make sure we were talking apples to apples. Because I was, with what you had here, didn't have.
So are all these then covered?
So they'll all be covered. It's just the decision of how you want to cover it. We're trying to match the previous plan design as closely as possible, but with several of them being arranged, that is where we're going to have differences.
So had we not talked about this, we would have went with what we currently have there.
So that would be a decision for the team. Yeah, that's definitely not a decision I would make. But we'll have those implementation calls with Dottie and Morgan. And certainly if there's something concrete that needs to be discussed, we could always bring it back to the meeting.
Well, I think those conversations need to be made here. I mean, the commissioners need to decide.
We can have it,
Inpatient, outpatient, what that copay.
we can have the implementation meeting be a public meeting. It is a long meeting, it's about 3 hours, but certainly.
Are you talking inpatient, outpatient? Because there are, when you're looking at, say, coinsurance, and there's a parentheses, and it says in/out,
Yes, but
that is in-network and out-of-network.
I understand that part.
that-
What I am
He's
confused about
got
is on
our-
our page 10, that the plan that you were given, it doesn't have anything to do with inpatient, outpatient. It has copays for, let me steal this again. Sure.
The document that you give everybody open enrollment that spells it all out for it, none of that is.
All I've seen was on
The
page
information.
10, which was, you talked about deductibles or copay for doctor visits, ER, urgent care, and prescriptions.
Yeah. So those were laid out so that we could design the bones of the plan and the values of the plan. But absolutely, there's more decisions to be made. When we go through implementation, there's a ton.
But I think inpatient, outpatient should have been part of that conversation. Those are big pieces, I guess. I mean, because, right now we have a range of $2,000 to $3,000. I mean, how is anybody going to be able to budget? You can come on over, Dottie, so you can see what I'm looking at here.
I'm printing it. I'm printing it right now.
So I think with the surest, the range is,
This is what we just.
you're supposed to shop around.
Which is similar to if you do deductible and coinsurance, it's up to the employee to shop for the lowest cost.
Those are ranges. You know, you've got ranges, and it depends on.
Obviously, inpatient is harder. Outpatient is more of a shopping process. Inpatient is, usually that's an emergent situation.
Yeah,
That's the question I'm asking,
that's what I did all the time.
how that plays into.
That's why we can keep it that way and change it.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear that I would have never made that decision on my own. That would have always been a conversation.
So that's,
I don't think we want to change that.
No, I have no problem with the changing it should have been a conversation when we were going through the rest of these, because that's my, I wanted to make sure that it's being covered, because when you look at here on this page, it doesn't even have it in there, so if you look at this, it just assumes that we don't have anything like that, so not having this in this part didn't make sense to us. To me, at least last night, I shouldn't say us, I'm sorry. I shouldn't speak for you guys. Now you see what I'm saying?
they're looking more at the summary.
This is what I'm looking at, if you want to.
Yep, absolutely.
So, 'cause-
No, absolutely.
I mean, the rest of the stuff we already talked about, but then the inpatient, outpatient are big chunks of
Yep,
money that we need to have, that people need to know what they're gonna have to pay for.
without a doubt.
Right.
So, you printing off those pages for them?
Yeah, Jody went to get them.
Okay. Hi, Bill.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
That extra hour of sleep really helped.
Hope so.
But it did.
To catch you up a little bit, so the PPO plan, or the original plan that we have, does have a deductible on it, which I was not understanding. So I want to make sure you're fully understanding it too. It does have a deductible, and it's the same deductible as the HSA, so it's the 35
Be fine.
and the 7, correct?
Yes.
And then the HSA has the same. Now, the deductible for the original plan, if I'm understanding correctly, is copay stuff. Now, with the HSA, they paid out of the HSA or they're out of their pocket up to the 35, and then they have copay from 35 to 5,000 on a single. On a family, it's to 7, and then copays to 10. Now, you get a little bit of individuals within the family have different markers too. So, I was understanding that we didn't have a deductible for the PPO, but I just want to clarify to make sure that's what's been discussed, talked about. We're all on the same page.
And I apologize for my tardiness.
Okay,
It's his fault. It's
Yeah.
his fault.
for sure.
Okay. Any other questions I have? Do you have any questions, Jim?
Trying to listen and understand. So what is the first decision we need to make?
The premium equivalents? Where we want to land for the premium equivalents on this tan and white page, or yours might be black and white, oh, tan and white. Okay. So the recommendation is to hold premium equivalents, assuming that we have,
At the 4.951,
yes.
695,000.
Yep, it puts us in between midpoint and max liability. We do have, I understand that, there's still some outstanding bills, but it sounds like we have at least 250,000 safely to budget with.
The UHC rebates, I don't have the backup for it, so I don't know if it's strictly, I think it's both pharmacy and medical. So for July 1st, except for this one might have been the prior year. Well, anyways, from July 1st till now, we've received just under 447,000. But at the very beginning of July, we had one deposit of 232,000. So I know the first year we weren't getting them.
Correct, there's a lag of
I
about
don't
6 to 9
know
months.
If that one is the first year and not the plan we're in right now.
Correct, so
However,
we budgeted for, essentially, we did not budget for rebates coming back in because we wanted to be, because there is a 6 to 9 month lag on those rebates, we wanted to be conservative. So anything that we receive will be additional to help us offset that difference, which is nice. We're trying to be as conservative as possible so that you can continue to build that
So
reserve.
that is what I show is rebates.
Okay, rebates, and then for the UHC deposits, you should have, I could pull the financials, but you should also have UHC depositing stop-loss reimbursements back in for your individuals who've gone over the specific.
We've only had 2, didn't we? 2 or 3.
They put it into the weekly or monthly reports, but that just means that we don't pay as much to replenish that account. So I wouldn't have that.
Okay, so they offset it before you
Yeah,
pay
so we
for
don't
the claim.
actually get it.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, some of them do a little bit differently, but year-to-date on, let's see, stop-loss reimbursements, we should be almost at 100,000 through the end of March. Then obviously, April, May, there would be potentially additional offsets that I haven't seen yet because of the lag in reporting.
Okay.
How many people are above, employees or plans are above
As of end of March,
Yes.
3.
the 3? I thought. Is anybody else close to going over?
Yes, we have 2 that are over 100,000 end of March. And then, of course, anything could pop up at any time.
Yes, so
Yep.
realistically, trending right now, probably 5 people over loss.
Yep, if things are trending as they are, yeah, I would say that's safe.
Okay. So with this 4.9, a little over 4.9 million, how many people, how many claims would go over that 150? Did you speculate?
So we were estimating about the same, 3 to 5 essentially,
That would hit the stop loss.
as an estimate just based on past years.
I know we increased from 125 to 150,000,
Yeah.
and so
So if we have fewer, then we could win on the fixed costs, but we have the protection of the aggregate in case more than that go over. So our all-in risk is not different.
so you're suggesting the 4.951,695
Yep,
as the big number to work off of.
correct.
I'm okay with that. With my numbers I was playing with last night, I had a little less than that, so I'm okay with going a little above it. I was budgeting off of, when I was playing with the numbers last night, I was playing around the 4.7.
And this means that there's no rate increase for the employee.
That's to be decided. This is just that there's no overall increase in cost for the county. So this is the all-in. Then once we have those numbers decided on, that's when we can go in and decide on the employee contributions.
We're estimating that the insurance is going to cost us 4.9. After that, we have to decide how we're going to split that up.
And that is 4.9 plus whatever if you do HSA matches.
We have that actually built in.
She has it built in with the 700, the 1,000, and the 12.
How? How? If those premiums are the same premiums as what we have right now?
So if we were going maximum to maximum liability, we'd actually be looking at an increase.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's how it's held. Essentially, is we're lowering the budget from max liability to somewhere in between max and midpoint. So it would be an increase if we stayed status quo on budgeting.
If we would have went to the 5.2.
Precisely.
And just to clarify, when you say maximum claims, that is statistically not true in the fact that not everybody goes with 150. It's just logically, no one's going to, this is just kind of what we assume would be max, correct?
This is
You're not
max.
taking 150, you're not taking 210 employees times 150,000.
No, because there's aggregate coverage in place, so we would never get there.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the all-in worst case scenario. You're not going to go over this because of how the contracts are built.
So we're thinking it's going to be $300,000 less.
Yes.
So if we do miss the hit, we miss this number, it's only going to max go to 52.
Yes.
Okay. We're only basically not guessing, we're taking on the risk that we're going to be $300,000 less than what we would max pay out.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Susan still figuring.
Yeah.
oh, I moved on to something else.
Now, the contributions, how did you have it set up? I mean, did you have 20% of the people moving over, 80%, 50%, 100%?
We assumed a 50-50 split.
How realistic is that?
Based on the information of last time who was enrolled with those same contributions, Dottie was saying it was approximately 50-50. So that was kind of our, and the plans do have almost identical values, so I could see it being absolutely realistic that about half the people take each.
Take the HSA or
Yes.
take the PPO?
You would agree with that, Dottie?
Now, of course, past experience does not predict future, whatever, but from our past experience, it's been about 50% of our employees, will take the HSA, 50% will do the PPO, really depends, you know, I mean, it's an individual thing where if somebody or somebody's family goes to the doctor a lot or they use a lot of prescriptions, then they would prefer the PPO because of getting those co-pays immediately. Now, if they're the type of, you know, member who doesn't go to the doctor, they don't use a lot of prescriptions, they will just simply pay a lower premium, which they like, and then get a little money from the county, and that, you know, with that HSA contribution, and, you know, so it's just varies, but in the past, it was about 50%, yeah.
Now, when you say that it was 50% at the end, what was it when we first started it? Because you have a month to explain this, right?
Excuse me. We had, back in 2016 is when the county decided to go with an HSA. So
many
we
people
were,
switched
but we
from,
were
do you know?
fully insured for all of that time with a PPO and an HSA. Then, when we became self-insured, we only had one plan, which is the PPO, because we didn't have a high deductible. We had no deductible. We only had an out-of-pocket max. And so we could not offer a health savings account. So from the time that we were, our previous time, which would have been with Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, we had about 50% of our employees take the HSA, 50% do the PPO.
Yeah, what was our, trying to look through all these papers. What was our cost last year?
The all-in cost?
Yeah,
It's the same as the projected, the suggested premium equivalence, 4.95 million.
4.95
Million, yes.
was our cost last year.
That was our premium equivalent. So since we were budgeted to worst case scenario, and honestly, we're pretty much right at that, it's gonna be very close to that, where we land.
We still have 2 more months.
Yeah,
So,
I understand.
okay.
yeah, but that was our previous budget, yes.
That means basically we're staying at the same amount, correct?
Right. Which when you're looking at trend being 7% medical, 13% pharmacy, holding premium equivalence is definitely a win.
But if we miss on that number, we still only go up to that 5.2, and that's the max we'd pay out anyways.
Yep.
You all caught up, Bill? Came in a little late. Make sure. I'm okay using that 4.951695, so $4,951,695 as our equivalent. You guys okay with that?
Motion?
I don't know if we need a motion on that, do we?
I don't think you need a motion for that. It's all gonna,
Out.
it's all going to end up being, what actually gets budgeted is all gonna be dependent on what you guys choose on how much the employee's gonna pay and how much the county's gonna pay. So that really means nothing because, for budget-wise, I mean, it means something. It doesn't mean anything for our budget.
I think that's the number we work with.
I'm okay with it.
Okay with it? Okay. Yes, let's go to the next step.
Okay. We are going to look at employee contributions. So the large sheet, I believe Susan printed out, that has
This one?
all the different yellow cells. Oh, wow, yes. That is the one. I think Susan might have even printed a bigger one.
I gave you all a big one.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I don't know what you did with yours. You can have this. It's got all my writing on it, but you can.
Right one? Yeah, yeah, no.
Oh, here.
Yell at me. want to double the information, that's all. Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad to give one up.
All right, I'm going to explain this. Please stop me at any point, okay?
Yeah.
So what you have the valuation of the PPO plan being 5% higher in the premium equivalents, which we've already discussed. So the values that are in yellow are the ones that we can play with, okay? So for example, on the HDHP or HSA plan,
So this one's the HSA plan.
Yep. What we have currently calculated is county pays 80%, employees pay 20%. We can adjust that and play with that however you want. So if we want to look at, we know what the current ones are. I know, Susan, you sent that out. It's like 7 for employee only on down the line. Okay. It's the hold, so that we already have the correct premium equivalents plugged in here. The first scenario is the core and buy-up, which is our recommended how we would move forward. So you pick what you fund for the high deductible plan. We'll fund that same dollar amount for the PPO. So the employees pay the difference or the buy-up of that 5%.
Where you at on this?
So when you plug in the 80/20, you can see what we've got, non-wellness and wellness, okay?
Looking at which one?
Yeah, so if you go down to
Middle one?
the big banner says core and buy-up option, county pays
So we're in,
6%.
okay, we're in the middle here.
All right.
Yep, the one, that top is just your current. So when we look at core and buy-up, county pays 6%, you put the percentage that you want to fund for the HDHP or HSA plan. We'll just go HSA, so I don't confuse anybody.
Thank you.
So if you change that cell, everything else will change based on how much the employee pays. When you go to the PPO plan, what we're saying in this scenario is we're going to pay the same dollar amount the county is towards your PPO plan, so that additional 5% in cost is picked up by the employee as they choose that buy-up option. So you'll pay 5% more of the total cost.
You're saying with the HSA, we're going to pay $993.46
So this is,
on the employee only.
so this is just built for how you want to utilize it. We talked about 10/90, 70/30. However you want to look at that, that's what we built it for. So this one, and this, I'm genuinely not suggesting anything. This is completely up to you guys.
But you have it built for an 80/20% right now.
Yep, and you can change that yellow 80 cell to whatever number you want.
Because with the 80/20, if I'm understanding this, if we went to 80/20, you're saying that the non-wellness employee only would go to $248.36
Monthly, yes.
monthly.
Yep.
What would that be per pay?
Go all the way.
All the way to the right is the non-wellness per pay and then wellness per pay on
Okay.
HSA and PPO.
This is per pay over here.
Yes.
Per pay is over here.
Oh, clear over here.
Clear over here, per pay.
So
So you're going to go to $114 per pay for the HSA and $143 for the PPO.
Yes,
At the 80/20%.
at the 80/20, and
non-wellness.
that would be what would be comparable to what we're paying now. So right now, the employee only at the same premium with the employee at 7% pays $40.12 per pay. So if you go to the employee paying 20%, that 40/12 is going to go up to 114.63.
Okay, so I have that information if you just want to.
Non-wellness.
So the employee only pays what right now? On a-
7% for employee
What's
only.
the
Oh, $40.12 per pay.
$40.12? What is employee spouse paying?
$139.97. Now, if you,
Nine.
that's all
Got
that
that?
on the very top page,
Okay,
in the
right here.
red amounts.
That's what they're currently paying.
Correct.
Okay.
I knew it was somewhere, I just wanted to.
And on that top one, I tried to portray, so the top part is exactly what we're doing. The second set is exactly what we're doing, minus $50 if they would have done the wellness.
The wellness.
But it is not considering a 5% increase for PPO. It's literally exactly what would be happening if nothing changed, period.
Well, we can't do that. That's too much. I mean, we're going from $40 to 114. That's too big of a hit per pay period. I mean, that's unrealistic, in my opinion.
I would agree.
So I don't think anybody's gonna agree with that one. So did you have it broke down at 90-10? You do that in the system?
Absolutely.
I just want to see what those numbers are.
Yep. Do you want me to read you the contributions?
Do per pay.
Just do per pay.
Everybody's worried about per pay. They're not.
Per pay. It makes it easier.
Everything else is going to confuse them.
Yep.
This is at the 90-10.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you non-wellness, and then I'll tell you wellness, because I want everyone to understand that if enough people participate in wellness, that you will be losing money in general from what you're taking on a contribution. So non-wellness per pay, HSA, 5731,
For employee only?
What is it?
employee only.
So 50,
Do you want me to just round and say like 57, or do you want the cents as well?
rounding's fine.
Okay,
fine.
for just the general.
So this is for the
Employee only HSA,
HSA,
57,
57,
employee spouse, 127,
27,
employee child, 115,
18,
family, 185.
185. And that would be
Then PPO would be 86, 191,
191,
173,
73,
277.
277. And that's the PPO plan.
Correct.
And those are both non,
Non-wellness, so
non-wellness.
no one's completed any activities, that's the per pay. If you want, I can also give you the wellness.
That's just $50 off everything, right?
Well, yes.
Yeah. So at the 90-10%, the employee only would go up $17. From 40 cents to $57. I mean, $40 to $57. The employee's spouse on the HSA actually would go down because they're paying 139, 140 and go to 127? Okay, and then in employee child would stay basically the same? Yep. And then the family would go from 258 to 185.
14%.
14, yeah.
Yeah.
And that would all be
That's the HSA. Now,
for, yeah.
The wellness.
So I think when you decide, you're going to need to decide on if you're going to do whatever percent you're going to do. And then just know that those that do the wellness won't actually end up paying that. Yeah, I don't really think you can do different for,
no, we can't.
yeah,
They did what we asked them to do,
right.
get the benefit from it, so.
The bottom section of numbers is if you want to break it down on the employee
What page are
contribution.
you looking at?
Still that same gigantic page, that bottom set of numbers that shows the employee contribution 20% all the way down. So, Kellen, let's see, this one. Yes, yes. The bottom set of numbers on the worksheet, you can change, you don't have to do a blanket 80, 20, 90, 10. You can actually play with each individual employee contribution percentage. So if you want to, let's just give an example. We want to work towards an 80-20. That's our goal. We're going to make it a 3-year plan, let's just say. You can start taking those numbers in that direction without just slapping it on all at once.
Well, we can't slap it all at once, so.
Exactly. So if the goal of the county is to go 80-20, we could start to move those numbers towards that. If the goal is 85-15, we can start to move the numbers towards that. It doesn't have to be wham all at once. Then that second, the PPO section of the same section I was just talking about, you can say then, okay, we're gonna have our employees pay 10% more than those on the HSA for the PPO differentials. You can also play with that.
Say that again.
So in that bottom scenario,
Yeah.
you can select how much above the HSA you want people to pay for electing the buy-up or the PPO plan. So you can say, we want employees to pay 10% more than those who are on the HSA in premium. That's what that section is of yellow that you can change.
Employee only would be 165. Am I reading that right?
Are you which one are you looking at, Bill?
PPO,
PPO for,
10% more.
So that's if they do their wellness.
gotcha, yep, I'm with you now.
Yeah, if
That's
they.
monthly, yeah.
If they do their wellness, it would be that. If they don't, it's 273. Those are per month.
Per month, not pay period.
Yeah.
Yep, and then
So,
the pay period is that far right, is still.
yeah.
What is the percentage of, how do I put this? Employee, I know employee spouse plans are the ones that we pay the most on, correct? Spouse is usually the most expensive.
Yeah,
Because if we go to 90-10 across the board, it doesn't really change anything except for the employee only, which basically doubles for the PPO plan.
yeah, going from 7 to 10, yeah.
Everybody else kind of stays roughly the same. And actually, family goes down. I feel like the family would use the plan more than the employee only. And I don't think we need.
Yeah, you're absolutely
I don't think we need to do a
correct.
flat rate across the board. I think we need to adjust a little bit. And
Yeah,
not-
that's.
Not
probably
punish
a
the
good
employee
idea.
only that doesn't really use the plan, making them have to pay more into it when they're not using it. I mean, they're almost would be doubling. I mean, they go from $40 right now to $86 if they went to the PPO plan. Now, if they went to the HSA, it'd go only up to 57. But I don't know, it seems unfair for them.
And here's a thought of just increasing the percentage by, say, 3%. Say from 7% to 10%. From, the 11% to 14%, 10% to 13%, and the 14% up to 17%. Doing something like that. It's kind of an incremental, and it's kind of the way that it's been done in the past, where it's just, instead of just across the board, the employee pays, 10%. It's always been incrementally like that for whatever reason. But if you are wanting to have the employee have more skin in the game, rather than doing the mass, everybody does 10%, everybody does, 15%, bump it up slightly. It's a thought.
Yeah, so if we were looking at contributions exactly how they are now on the HSA, and we have about half of employees enrolled in wellness, we would be, quote, losing about $103,000 in employee contributions to the plan. So to avoid going backwards for employee contributions, I would suggest that, a slight increase. As Dottie said, we can make it per tier.
What does that look like? We do, let's just, like Dice said, 3%.
Yeah, throw some numbers at me.
It would look like this. If you went up just the 3%, for employee only, it would be $60.18 per pay.
HSA
Yeah, you're talking
Or the-
HSA?
or PPO?
PPO.
That would be the PPO.
PPO, okay. We're all apples to apples,
What
so
was that number again?
$60.18 per pay.
Employee spouse?
For employee and spouse, it would bump up to 14%, which would be $187.05 per pay.
I'm getting just slightly different numbers. I don't know if it's because it's 26 versus, like, I don't know if you did just divided by 2.
I have what Dottie has.
Okay, yeah, 26 pays. For employee and child, it bumps up to 13%, and that would be $157.26. And family coverage, bumping that up to 17%, would be $346.01.
What
Did you
again,
just say, what was that last thing?
346.01,
For family?
yeah, for family.
At
Bumps it up to
seven-
17%.
I have 329.44.
Oh,
one?
that's even better, okay.
The family at
329.
17%,
I thought that 34016,
329.44.
258.
a little bit of math.
You agree with the other 3 then?
Yeah, the other 3 matched.
what was the percentage again on the spouse and child?
They all went up 3%.
3%,
They all went up through.
from 7 to 10, from 11 to 14, from 10 to 13, from 14 to 17.
So the employee only would be about a $20 increase. The spouse would be about just under 50. Child would be just under 40.
I had 42.
Oh, yeah. 40, yeah. And then, yeah. Yeah, per pay.
That's something you live with?
Doing some more math, hold on a second.
Susan,
Yeah.
is that something that would be within the budget?
So if we went with that, per year increase would be, if you guys are ready, and Susan can do my math here, employee only would increase $521.56 for the year. Employee spouse would increase $1,224.08 per year. Employee child would increase $1,093.30 per year, and the family would be $1,847.56. I just took that number times 26. So that's what they would increase. $1,847.56. That's how much more they would have to pay into the plan when you put it all together. That's a lot for a family. I mean, extra $2,000 they got to put in. So, I wanted to see what the overall is. You can play with the smaller numbers all day, but if, what's the going to cost the employee at the end of the day? It's gonna be that. And my math's correct, right, Susan?
If they do, yes.
Okay.
If they do the wellness thing, then it would go up $547 for the family, if they do their wellness part.
Say that again.
Goes up?
The county's,
What?
your portion.
No, I was talking about the employee. So right now, the employee for family, the employee pays $6,717.97. if you go to 17%,
Where'd you get that 6,000? I'm confused.
on this first page,
Yes, I'm on the first page.
very top, the green and the blue. The green is per employee per year.
And
The
the
blue
cost for the
is
county.
what we pay per employee per year. So 6717 is what a family currently pays as of right now. So if they go to the PPO, which is the 5% increase, and if you go to the 17%, then they would be paying $8,565.41. And if they do the wellness program, they would be paying $7,265.41 for the year.
Can I have those numbers?
So, at the 17%, $8,565.41. And then also 17%, but with the wellness benefit, $7,265.41.
I mean, basically, if you did the wellness, you're getting $1,300. Right, 26 times 50, 13. So you just, if you did the wellness, you just subtract that 13 off of that yearly premium.
I don't think that matters.
That's on the PPO.
If they did wellness, it would, if I'm correct, it'd be a $547.56 increase.
Correct.
6, and that's how much.
Well, your increase would be from $258.38 per pay to $279.44 per pay if you did the wellness.
It's done tomorrow, correct?
But they've known for a year.
I know, I'm just saying that so anybody that's watching now knows that it's tomorrow's the last day to do it. Okay. So that was the PPO. What percentages do you have for the HSA? What's the differences we have there?
So to help big number wise, the PPO with the 5%, if everybody did that one, that's gonna be your highest cost. And then you would know that some would go HSA, and then you would have a contribution if you decide to go that way. So big number wise, if you look at if everybody was on PPO with the 5% and did the wellness, the all-out money for the county would be just over 4.8.
Is it 4.8?
Yeah, you don't have that on there.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to.
Yes, it'd be just over 4.8 if everybody stayed on a PPO plan with the increase of
We know that
5% with the increase of the employee contributions, 10, 14, 11, 17, and if everybody did that wellness, because that wellness piece of it is gonna cost the county, it's gonna go against the county. So if every single person did that and stayed on PPO, 4.8 million would be what you're looking at, compared to, right now, we're at 4.46,
Pretty close to that.
which, if everybody does that wellness thing anyways, it's gonna cost the county.
But not everybody did it. We had, what, 119 last?
Correct, I'm just giving you big numbers.
No, no. Okay.
But if half of them went on the other plan, skew that number then, right?
Right, but it wouldn't be as much. Like, it would come down.
Because they're gonna be paying out of pocket prior before we pay anything.
Well, and the HSA plan is cheaper. So whether, even if half of them go to HSA, it's still gonna cost the county less because those premiums are cheaper to begin with than the PPO.
Yes, I'm good with the 3%.
As a tier across.
If I did anything, I'd leave the family at 14%, but
What is, I guess it comes down to what we want to do in 3 years, correct? Or,
If the goal is to get to 80/20, then I think that this is a good way to start working towards that. And to your point, if you want to keep the family, more affordable, you could say, because they have less to go in 3 years to
Yeah.
get to the 20,
Yeah,
you could
6%.
do, 2, 4, 6. So a 2% on family rather than 3. Because if we're easing into those numbers, we would need to go faster on employee only, and we could slow down on family, for example.
But I think something that you need to think about is what you said earlier as, are you gonna go to that across the board, or are you taking into consideration whether an employee might not use it as much, might not be as expensive? So if you're going to keep that differentiation, then we're never gonna get to across the board thing. It's always gonna have a differentiation. So that would, something to think about as you go to the future.
If I might interject just a second, I just asked Dottie, just keep in mind on that premium equivalent sheet that Lauren provided, that tells you on there how many employees are on which plans. So like you have 134 employee only, you have 23 employee spouse, you have 38 employee with children, and you have 22 family. Just so you know, those numbers are right there when you're calculating stuff out.
we have to kind of decide where do we want the numbers to look like in 3 years? Do we want it to be 80/20 across the board? Do we want employees to be at 13%? How are we going to skew those numbers? What's the
End goal.
end goal? Yeah, thank you.
low enough that we never have to get to 20%, but
Or do you, if you want some, across the board, obviously would just be easier for everybody in figuring. If you wanted, if you wanted to get towards like the 14% slowly, then your families that already pay a ton and would have a lot more of their out-of-pocket are there. And if they do their wellness, then they're lucky.
Yeah, you're already, with the changes, proposed changes, you're already getting pretty close to the 85-15 split.
What is the market normal? What's the average for family? Is it
So I can-
15, 20, 17%?
I can send you guys some benchmarking, just to kind of understand what the average is, because it depends on, is it Indiana, is it a county? I want to make sure I pull the specific benchmarking for your segment.
long will it, we need to have that information today, because we have to get this done today, so
Be
we can
nice
get
to
people
have
out.
answers today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we need to take a break for a little bit, we could, so you can get that, because we need to know that, we need to get this done today. So that way you can get it rolled out, so the employees have time to figure out what their plans they're gonna go for, and.
Well, I have fantastic news. They already sent it to me after I requested it. I was surprised that that went very quickly. So when we are looking at Indiana HSA, the HSA employee only this is going to be your premium equivalent. Are you looking for the actual employee contribution?
We're at 7% right now for employee only. What would be,
The percent?
yeah. Well, you can, I mean, or,
Here we go. Okay, sorry, I was making sure I was looking at the right thing. Okay, so monthly employee contribution for HSA, 118. 418 for employee spouse. 347 for employee child, and 603 for family.
118 employee, 418 spouse, 347 child, family 603.
Yep, and then I'll give
That's
you
per month.
per month. Then let me give you PPO is 191, same format as the previous. 573 employee spouse, 511 employee child, 837 for family. Let me give you those percentages too, because your
Numbers?
That's per month, that's the average.
monthly.
Monthly, so we gotta break those
Average
down.
of
Indiana.
Indiana?
Indiana, when we look at industry,
Break that down to 26 pays.
it's going to change based on industry. So would you like industry, HSA, and PPO?
What did you just give us?
That's average.
That was Indiana.
Average?
And if you're looking at national, both coasts are gonna be extremely high compared to us.
Actually, it may come as a shock. Indiana is one of the most expensive healthcare states in the country.
Is it Parkview?
Yeah.
Oh,
Parkview's,
This area specifically, yeah, but
Parkview is
also
one of the top.
Indy has IU Health, which is incredibly expensive, so
Number 3,
yeah, Parkview's number 3, yeah.
Okay, so what are the national ones?
you want national or industry? So county,
You gave us Indiana, right?
Indiana.
Okay, industry.
Industry, employee only 47 for HSA. 292. Employee spouse, employee child is 194.
84.
194, and family is 362. Then when we look at PPO, 74 employee only, 458 employee spouse, 381 employee child, and 584.
74,
For family.
485, 381, and 584.
I'm going to give you the percentages of this is going to be the industry premium equivalent and the industry contribution percentage. Let's see. Employee only averages 7%.
7?
7. Employee spouse is an average of 20%. Employee child is 16%. Family is 18%.
And that was industry?
Industry, correct.
Do you have those for the Indiana ones?
I sure do. HSA,
Yeah.
and I can send you this too, guys, so.
Yeah, I think we're all writing it down.
Yep, 19% employee only. %31 for employee spouse. %30 for employee child. And 32% for family.
That's HSA.
That is for HSA, correct.
Yeah, HSA.
And that's average of every industry in
In Indiana.
Indiana.
Yes, ma'am.
And the industry ones are counties.
Counties. It's not Indiana specific. I would give that, like, you know, kind of maybe somewhere in the middle is where you would fall, a county in Indiana. Just as a note, the average annual contribution for HSA single is $1,200, family is $1,800. For industry, and Indiana is $637 and $1,000. Again, you guys would, you're kind of a hybrid there.
For in industry percentages, for employee only is kind of right there.
Yep.
Employee spouse is under by 9%. Employee child's under by 6%, and family's under by 4%. Correct?
Yep.
Kind of what I'm looking at.
Is that the HSA? Or the-
These are, yeah, so those were,
That was the industry.
yeah, the
that was the
percentages were all, yeah.
HSA, I believe.
I also see that math was already done for me in a different section. I could have saved myself some time. I'm going to forward this to you guys because it has plan design benchmarking as well on it, so kind of some good things to look at. Susan, I'll piggyback it on the email that you sent last night, so we have everybody. Your plan design is also right in line with benchmarking for industry, exact same out-of-pocket and slightly lower deductibles. However, this is 2 years old. We were refreshing it for this year. So that was when the minimum deductible was $3,000. It's $3,600 versus the $3,507. But when this is refreshed this year with our new 2 years of data, I think you're going to be just dead on benchmarking.
So I'm going to go back here a little bit.
Of course.
So last year with Surest, the original plan, I'll call it, we did not have any deductible. So now this year, we're adding a minimum of $3,500 deductible to the PPO plan. And then the HSA plan has a 30, wait, no,
Yep, same.
They're the same.
same. So they have, everybody has a deductible of 34. And
34 or 35?
35.
35, I'm sorry, 35 and 7. But if you're on the PPO plan, your copays go to that, correct?
So your copays apply right away, but those dollar amounts are actually going towards your out-of-pocket, not your deductible.
For the PPO.
Correct.
So how do you meet your deductible?
So you would only meet your deductible if you had an expense, should the plan design specify that, such as an inpatient stay, outpatient procedure, things like that, lab work, imaging.
Okay, so let's just do a scenario here. You go to the ER,
Yep.
chest pain, costs you 10 grand. You have a $500 deductible for ER visit. Then you have a $3,500, so they're paying 4 grand.
No, so if you were in that scenario of a $5,000 ER visit, if you were on the HDHP, you would pay the $3,500 HSA.
Thank you.
HSA?
Stay on the same language here, please.
HSA? You would pay
HSA.
the 3,500 and be done.
Okay, now if you're on
that
the, if
$5,000
you're on the PPO plan, what does
Yes.
it work that way? I understand the HSA, how that works. I'm trying to figure out the PPO plan.
So
So
with
in that
the,
same scenario, what, if you're on the PPO plan, what does that look like?
so you pay $500 copay, and you can kind of X off the then co-insurance piece on that because co-insurance is 100%. So the plan picks up the rest. So you pay that $500 only.
Or does that 500 go towards that 3,500, or does it just go towards your max?
Goes towards your max.
Okay, so the 35 only hits when you don't have a copay.
Correct. That is correct. You got it.
Do we have anything that doesn't have a copay?
That is to be decided in plan design. My recommendation would be, yes, to have some of those big ticket items go deductible and co-insurance to keep the overall plan cost in check.
So we're in the ER, we did the 500. Now you go, you get submitted upstairs, and you're an inpatient now. Does that 500 cover the whole stay?
So in the case that you're inpatient, the deductible of the ER visit would be waived. So then you would actually just be at your inpatient level,
Which we haven't determined.
which you haven't determined.
Okay. That's when people get in trouble. I mean, that's when you get to the, go to the ER,
Absolutely.
you get it submitted, you're at the hospital for
Yep.
a week.
That's why you have the embedded pieces to protect individuals, the deductibles to protect the overall cost. Yeah, absolutely.
And we're gonna go over what we're thinking the inpatient, outpatient. We're gonna,
Okay, one quick question before you go to that next one. So if someone had the PPO, they went and had labs done, and it ended up being like $5,000, then
So then they would be done at the 3,500. And then
they
the
would pay
rest
$3,500.
Yes. Now, with plan design, you can say, if you go to LabCorp, it's no cost. Or, if you go to the hospital, then you're deductible and co-insurance. There's absolutely ways to drive utilization to those lower cost providers. So that's all plan design. And that's
that's not-
something you can do as
it's
a
not
group.
preventative blood work, right? That's,
Correct. Preventative is 100% as always. Yep.
if you go to the doctor and he wants just a routine checkup blood work, that's already covered.
Either plan, covered at 100%. Yep.
Wanna
Thank
make
you
sure
for
I don't-
clarifying.
don't
Yeah,
wanna go to-
absolutely.
Go to the doctor for a checkup and they go get some basic labs and they're $3,500.
No.
Okay.
Those would be for non-preventive items.
So, but what if you've already, what if you already have a health problem that your doctor is following you, so you have to get repeat blood work, that
Yeah.
might not be,
So if you, let's say your first panel is
Cholesterol.
5,000 and you hit that 3,500, the next time you go to do more blood work, it's no cost because your co-insurance is 100%. So once you hit that 3,500, unless you have a copay, then you're done.
so
you're
it's
done.
not, it's not possible for,
One
I'll
person.
use me as an example. So
Yeah.
I have to get scans every 6 months for my cancer.
Yep.
So because they're checking that every 6 months to try to be preventative, it's not like a normal preventative.
Right. It's not ACA preventive. Yeah.
Right, so there's nothing to be able to account for, I don't get the scan, I could cost the county millions because my cancer
Yep.
might come back. But if I do get the scan, we might catch it, it might not cost millions, but yet I still might have to pay $5,000. So there's not,
3,500. Yeah.
okay, 3,500.
Yeah.
I would have to pay
Up to
5 because I'm
35, not with the
family.
scanning.
Right.
So, but there's not any way to account for that, to account that somebody is being watched? Does anybody know what I'm trying to
I
ask?
understand what you're saying because you're saying these are for your cancer, this is
preventative.
preventative. I understand completely what you're saying, but no, the only things that are covered at 100% are those ACA preventative.
I don't even care if it's 100%, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
there's no way for,
Again,
instead of me paying $5,000 for an MRI, that because it's a preventative so that my cancer doesn't go
Yep.
crazy, that I might get a break, only have to pay,
Now, again,
1,000
something we could
or-
totally do with plan design, standalone imaging. We have an incentive to go to a standalone imaging facility. So 100%, there's ways to help you or help that situation. But if you make scans in general a copay, that gets tricky just because no one's gonna shop. Everyone's gonna go to the hospital. Everybody's gonna go, yeah. So we try to utilize plan design to help people help themselves in cost.
And there has been a lot of changes in our area with labs available.
Yes.
I think the closest lab corp's like in Fort Wayne, there's one in Angola or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, so will we provide that information to folks? Because.
Oh, absolutely. That's
kind of a
open
backup
enrollment,
to what
yeah.
Susan just said, that actually happened to me. And I went to Parkview and I
Yeah.
paid $1,700 for labs.
Yeah,
So, out of my pocket.
yes.
And I know there's other folks here that's happened to. So that's one of the things that's been a hot topic
Yeah,
people were asking about.
absolutely.
Give you a little bit of background.
No, for sure, that's very helpful, and again, things we can do with this plan design that we couldn't do with Suris because it was a cemented plan design. Yeah, you can set this up however you would like with of course, with the grain of salt that we have to control costs for the plan while trying to give employees the best benefits possible.
okay, so back to the premiums that we need to decide.
Yes.
So if you look at the industry, which is the county's average, if you look at those values, the employee only was 7%.
7, 20, 16, 18.
Yep.
Yes. So right this minute, our employees are at 7%, spouses are at 11, children are at 10, and families are at 14.
Employee spouse is the biggest change.
And if we're comparing apples to apples, honestly, I would be looking at that PPO line in the industry, Susan. So when we're
So
looking.
what are those?
So the PPO percentages are 10% employee only, 30% employee spouse, 30% employee child, and 28% family.
That's the PPO industry standard?
Yes. That's closer to what you currently have for plan design.
That's closer to what we currently have, even though
For plan design, yeah.
our HSA, So prior, when we were talking about our HSA, though, those were
The 118.
what we currently have. That's confusing.
Can I suggest a 5-minute break? 5-minute break?
Yep.
Let's do a 5-minute break here. Reset our brains here a second. Thank you for that, Bill.
Yeah. More than one of us needed that.
Okay. Been at it for a bit here.
Okay, moving forward.
I would like to go back to the industry standard for the PPO. Was that the 7, 20, 16, 18? Or was that the 10, 30, 30, 30?
10, 30, 30.
10, 30, 30, 28. That is the PPO. The HSA is the 7, 20, 16, 18.
I guess my question to the other commissioners is, where do we want to see this plan in 3 years? What percentages do we want to kind of get to? Then we can determine increments to that point. Like if we want to have 10% for employee only, that's only a 3% increase. I'd spread that over 3 years, which would be a 1% increase for them if that's how we're going to. Now, I think 30%, 28 is pretty high. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I like the more the 80-20. But PPO industry standard, which is that, and it seems what it is.
And typically what I think that is stemming from is having the HSA plan as the core plan that you're really basing those decisions off of, and then the PPO as the buy-up where the employee is choosing to pay that additional premium to have those copays.
So, okay, so didn't you just say that the 10%, 30, 30, 28 is what is comparable to our current 7, 11, 10, 14?
Correct. That is the plan design that is most closely aligned to your current plan design, so you truly have very rich contributions for your employees.
But she also was just saying that they have an HSA plan probably with it, and they're trying to push them towards the HSA by making the PPO more expensive.
Exactly. It's for the employee to truly pay for that richer benefit as a buy-up.
And that's how we've always historically done it. Back in, let's see, 2023, and the HSA plan for an employee only was $46.05 per pay. And the PPO plan for employee only was $62.48 per pay. So they were paying more for the privilege of having the copays.
So do you guys want to go to a flat, work towards a across-the-board flat 90-10, 80-20, or are you going to keep them different? You need to decide that part first,
Yeah.
so that you know where you're going.
I don't think a flat is, across the board, I don't think a flat's what I would agree with. I think the employee spouse tends to be a higher cost. And then I would follow family, then employee child, then employee, I'm assuming?
For cost, yeah.
Roughly? So I'm looking at the 7, 20, 16, 18%. The industry
HSA.
HSA. Kind of my thought.
What now? 7 what?
So 7% for the employee only, 20% for the employee spouse, 16 for the employee child, 18 for the employee family. That's the HSA standard, so I mean.
Yep.
And you would use those percentages on either of our plan because we increased the premium on the PPO? Or are you wanting different percentages for the PPO? I'm just clarifying.
Would you like a
what we're trying to figure,
recommendation?
Yeah.
My recommendation would be to base those percentages off the HSA plan, is have that be your goal, and then have a differential either by how much different in premium or by a percentage for the PPO plan. So shooting for the HSA plan being the 7, 20, 16, 18, or whatever you decide on.
And then how much more of an increase do you want percentage-wise for the PPO? Do you want to go to 10, 30, 30, 28? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I would say you could either say that the difference, the employee pays the difference between the value of the HDHP and PPO. I don't think you have to go that far, simply because your plan designs are a lot closer to each other than these examples. So with those two being very similar in value, it shouldn't cost employees a ton more to go onto the PPO.
I would suggest you come up with your percentage of premium you want the employee to pay, no matter what plan they're on. And then, like in our examples, the PPO, the premium per year or per month increased 5%. So the increase is in that amount, and then the employee still would just pay the same 7%, whatever, instead of having one set of employee percentages for each plan.
So you'd be subsidizing more of the PPO, but that's fine if that's the intention.
So the percentages would be 7%, 20, 16, 18. But we can't jump 9%.
But you're gonna do that over 3 years.
Over 3 years. We can't do a 9% increase on spouses in 1 year. That'd be a 3% increase this year, next year, and the year after, to get to that 20%. For employee child, you would increase 2%, because we're at 10 when you get to 16. And for family, it goes from 14 to 18, so it would be 2%, 1%, 1%, 1 to 1, however you want to do that. And that's just our base percentage that we want to have on each. We would subsidize a little bit more on the PPO by increasing the 5% off of what they pay, or the pay period, correct, Susan? Off of each paycheck. The 5% would be off the, so they would go from $40 times 5%, that would be the increase for, is that what you were saying?
So employee-only HSA per month in totality is the $1,241.82. And if you increase it by 5%, it's the $1,303.91. Then you have to
Put that among all the,
times it by 12, divide it by 26 to get your per pay.
I think I'm okay with that. What's your thoughts? Jim?
The spouse,
We're at 11 right now, we'd go to 20% in the next 3 years. So we'd go 333, so we'd increase it 3% this year.
and
So
the
14%.
7% was going up 3% as well.
No, the 7% would stay, but then the 5% would be into, when it gets added into
The PPO part.
the PPO part.
So right now we're at 7, 11, and 14.
Correct.
And you want to go, or the proposed is to raise all but the employee 3% each? Is that what I heard you say?
No, it'd be 2% for child.
Okay, so going
We
to,
want to get to, for employee spouse, get to 20%.
yep,
11, and then from child to 16 and family to 18. So you
Okay.
have a 10, you have a 9%,
7, 14, 12.
And then what are you doing on family, since it's an odd figure?
2, 1, 2, 1. I mean, 1 year's got to be 2. And
Right,
years will-
so 15%. So employee only 7, spouse 14.
18 makes it easy.
and 2, I mean,
So 7,
I
14,
was just trying
12,
to stick with the
15.
industry standard at 18.
Yeah,
But yeah, and we can just do 1% this year and get some more numbers and see how it goes next year.
Okay.
7, 14, 12, 15 is what you guys just said.
14, 12, 15.
7, 14, 12, and 15.
What the percentage would be breakdown
For the HSA.
coming year?
7, what?
That's for both.
7, 14, 12, 15, which would be the increase, that's what it would be this year, with the goal of going to that in 3 years.
So that makes the employee only who has qualified for wellness, it will make their health insurance free
Right.
on the HSA.
I don't really want to add in the wellness part because they did what they asked us to do, so.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying that's actually great for your employee onlys that are doing the wellness coverage.
Yeah, I mean,
I was saying that as a positive.
It would be free on the PPO also.
So yeah, on the PPO, are you wanting to keep the employee, like the exact same split then?
yes.
Okay,
Because with the
So, yeah,
HSA,
you're-
we're putting money into them, while the PPO is not getting that benefit. Correct?
say that again?
With the HSA, we have it built in that we're going to be contributing to it, correct? And we kind of.
Correct,
An
yes.
hour or so ago.
So yes, that brings the PPO to no cost
Wanna
as
leave
well.
the individual at 7?
That's the standard on that, Art, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, I just want to make sure I'm clarifying. So we want to pay, we're still going to do 7, 14, 12, 15 of the PPO premium equivalent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I need to have them, this spreadsheet doesn't have that capability, but I will have them create that.
I just did it. Spreadsheet in the bottom.
So the percentage on the, above the HDHP, that looks like the only, on the HSA, the percentage above the HSA is the only editable field I'm seeing.
But your next section has edible fields for every employee, spouse, child, family. So I did 7, 14, 12, 15 in both HSA and PPO.
By leaving it at 7, it's really skewed. Trying to, I don't know, it just, I think we ought to raise the 7. 1, 2. But it seems you go 7 to 14, 12, 15, kind of out of balance.
True, but you have 7 is just one person, while the 14 is 2 people. And you kind of look at it that way. And then the 14, employee spouse, is 3 of the top 4 claims are the spouse. So they're the ones using it way more than the employee. So that's kind
Well,
of
the
my thought
industry average is also wacky because it's 7, 20, 16, 18. It's also,
Yeah, and historically, employee only is going to be pretty significantly lower because they want the company wants their highest contribution to be towards the employee to have, you know, the top tier health insurance.
Makes sense. Clear as mud. I mean, we can go 8% if that makes you more comfortable.
I'd be okay with 8. Be honest.
Yeah, so increase it 1% this year,
it still will be free.
Yeah,
if you did the
if you
wellness.
do
yeah.
wellness, yeah. Correct.
So for the PPO, we're going to go to 8% for employee only, 14%, because it's both. For employee spouse, 12% employee child, and 15% family.
Yep.
Certainly want to be fair to all the employees. Keep it as low as we can. Want to be fair.
And it's,
And I agree, but don't use the word free, because it's not free. And it does give the employee,
Premium,
it doesn't cost the employee
it
anything.
doesn't cost the employee out of their check.
But it does encourage the employee to go and do the wellness check, because that's really the incentive.
yep.
Get that
Right.
wellness check so that we can get our costs down
Right.
across the board. And anything we can do to encourage the employee to become more healthy, it'd be to our advantage, but that term free just is not free.
It's not free, but if the employee doesn't have to pay anything, then it's free in the employee's mind.
Yeah, and that's a great story to tell. You go through the wellness activities to try to keep the plan as a whole healthy, then you have no cost and premium as an employee. A good story.
Okay, so now we've got that part settled. Census of the, okay.
I think so.
Yep, so I can get you guys your final premium equivalents and employee contributions kicked out. Should be at today.
So then we have to decide the employee contribute, the match for the HSA. She had it set up for 700 for employee only, 1,000 for employee spouse, and 12 for employee family, correct?
That was the previous, yeah, that's what's calculated into the premium equivalents, yes. 3-tier is a little unusual, but absolutely not unheard of. Typically, the HSA contributions are 2-tier, employee, and then any dependent tier is the same. But again, doesn't have to be like that. Just kind of giving you guys some background.
It's not on.
Oh, yeah, this was just the previous employee contributions.
When she did the calculations, she added in that we'd be paying, we'd match up to $700 employees, only 1,000 for the employee spouse and 12.
And I had 750, so if you change that top, it's 93,800, and the total would be 181,200 if you.
This is how it's, that would be what we would, at 87.9, that would be what we would contribute if everybody did the max at 50/50.
181,200 would be the new number, because I had the 750, not 700 for
So what's the,
employee.
I'm sorry, what was the number?
181,200.
And that's with how many employees going to the?
That would be if every single employee went.
That's everybody, okay, yeah.
That would be
I was like, that's the max we do.
Absolute max, yes.
I mean, unrealistically, not everybody's gonna go to that, but I was just
Right.
wondering what that number came from. Okay. 700 here.
And will we be doing the same program? The last time that we had a health savings account, an HSA, DeKalb County government would contribute dollar for dollar to the health savings account. So if the employee contributed $50, that's what the county contributed.
Yeah,
And it was per pay, so we did it, you know,
to a max
every,
of 700, 1,012.
Which is absolutely the preferred strategy. It encourages employees to also contribute to their HSA to build up those funds, so if they do have to meet their deductible in 1 year and they're on a family plan, they'll have $2,400 already banked, if that makes sense.
And then another thing we have to decide is, previously, we were with UMB was the administrator of the health savings account. And so every employee, that's where their money went. And that's where our money went as a county. There are opportunities, we can write this so that each employee can use their own financial institution. And whoever, if they happen to have a health savings account opportunity there. So that's kind of an up to you sort of thing.
Yeah, typically for admin ease, it is good to land on one place. You could also have that place at your open enrollment, helping people open these HSA accounts that are enrolling in the HSA, because of course, without the account, you can't do the match. So.
I think just having one bank. Extremely easy for.
There's multiple that Would that be a nightmare?
Multiple, I'm sorry,
Multiple bank accounts for the
banks.
HSA.
that would be insane.
So if somebody says, hey, I have an HSA, it's at Chase, can I utilize that? We want to say, you need to utilize the bank that DeKalb has chosen. Because they can, by the way, they can roll those funds from whatever bank that they are currently using. They can roll those into the new account, no taxation, anything. They just need to take the appropriate steps.
If they have it set, if they have something set up, I'm not gonna make a move. We'll make it work.
And that's, you can absolutely say,
It'll be
here's the
insane,
deal. If
but
you
we
want
can
to
make it
utilize the HSA account that you already have set up, no, not a problem. We also have a vendor on site if you don't have something set up that can help you. Perfectly fine. That's all administrative things,
You know,
so by
I-
all means, yeah.
The problem with UMB is that we don't have any branches around here. Everything was done intranet, internet. Now, there are plenty of opportunities around here for financial institutions to,
Yeah.
that have brick and mortar
Yeah.
stores where people might want to actually go in. They have relationships, there's some of that. Plus the fact that if you are, let me back up. It used to be with Old National Bank. Old National didn't have any branches around here. They do in Fort Wayne, but they were known as the health savings account expert.
Yep.
Back in the day when HSAs first started.
Back in the day when I used to work at Old National and HSAs.
And then they sold off that portion of their business to UMB. And I think their headquarters are down in Louisville or Lexington, something like that. Anyway, so I have checked with payroll, and it's, if somebody wants to get into the HSA, they want to open an HSA, and all that they would have to do is the same as they would do with their direct deposit. They would have to go in, get, a form from that branch of their financial institution, and we would have a form and bring it in, and it would be fairly about the same as when we just sent all the money. If she's already sending money for a direct deposit to one place, and that's where they have their HSA, goes, but just in a different account.
Yeah.
So it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, people.
Yeah, and any local bank is going to jump at the opportunity to come and help your employees, so.
If Susan said that's fine, then we'll go with that.
Okay.
You guys, they're the ones that have to do it, not us. That's fine with you guys. We'll just let them choose their own HSA place. Or to have the vendor there to, if they don't have one. Okay. Now we have to decide, if I'm correct, on how much we want to contribute, how much we want to match up to.
I'm good with these.
Do you want a reminder of the benchmark, or good with just leaving it as is?
Of the contributions?
Of the HSA, yeah, HSA contributions.
Oh, yeah, I have.
Now, you had this added into the,
The premium equivalents, yes. It would fluctuate a little bit, but you will also have individuals who won't contribute the full match, that, won't get up to that, so it'll
you had
kind
it
of
at
shake
50%,
out.
correct? The
Correct.
Okay, so it's going to be all over the place.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
essentially.
Okay.
Unless you're making a massive change to the dollar amounts, I wouldn't overly concern yourself with the premium equivalents based on those dollars.
What's the industry standard?
So Indiana is 637 employee only, 1,000 for all, yep,
637,
employee only, yep. And then 1,000 for all the dependent tiers,
1,000 for everything else.
yep. And industry, so national industry, 1,200 employee only, 1,800 dependent tiers.
What's the first one?
First was Indiana, 1,200, 1,800 was industry. So you guys, for benchmarking sake, you're probably right in the middle of those, being an Indiana-based county. Yeah, so you're, yeah. And
In
you're,
my opinion, we base it on Indiana.
yeah,
Close.
yeah, you're actually richer than
We have
Indiana.
the last time we did it, we had 700 for employee only, 1,000 for spouse and child, and 1,200 for family.
Yep,
Match.
I'd be in favor of that, I think.
Huh?
That would work,
Yeah. You gotta add budget and stuff.
7, 10, 12.
Okay, I want to ask Joni something. If we do not go with one HSA bank, so say we have 15 banks, how is that going to affect you if we have to send, like, payroll-wise, right now, we send payroll to one bank and then it goes all over? Would we still just be sending one file to our bank and then that bank would send it on to everybody else? Got, okay. I just wanted to make sure. So,
yeah. The one thing that, and I'm sure you already know this, I'm just, dotting my i's, those are all pre-tax dollars.
so, from what I've heard, I need a motion to approve.
One more thing, though, before we go to. I wanna go over the co-pays for the in-service and outpatient stuff.
No, that's gonna have to be something separate.
Okay.
Do this one first. So we need a motion to approve premium percentages, employee only, 8% paid by employee, employee spouse, 14% paid by employee, employee child, 12% paid by employee, family plan, 15% paid by employee, and HSA matches for employee only 700, spouse and child 1,000, family 1,200.
I would so move we accept it as presented.
A second.
A motion second on the floor. Are there any additional comments? Comments from the public?
Come on up.
Yeah, come up there.
Yeah, so I can answer that if everybody's okay with that. This is weighting the employee child tier, giving that a little bit more grace because the spouse is not on that, and spouses are typically the most expensive. So this brings your employee spouse and your family up into range because of the fact that spouses are the most expensive members on plans. Does that make sense? They're the highest cost claims.
Okay, I guess my question is an employee spouse is 2 people, family is potentially.
3 or more.
Right, but the 18% is of the larger premium. So it's still gonna be more expensive overall for a family than it is for an employee spouse because that premium is smaller.
I think,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great question.
I think a lot of it is, even if we have 5 kids in a family, the employee and the kids generally cost less.
Exactly.
So even if there is more than 2 people, it generally is gonna cost the county less anyways than just when you added a spouse.
I just was worried, or questioning it, because like I said before,
Yeah.
11% and 14%.
Yeah, yeah, great question.
Okay. So going back, we have a motion and a second. Any additional comments from the commissioners? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Okay, Susan.
Oh, this is Kellen. This isn't me, this is Kellen.
Okay, but you didn't do the PPO?
The PPO and the
That's
HSA had the
everything
same,
Percentage.
has the same percentage.
Of the higher premium equivalent,
Yeah.
yes.
But the PPO is going to cost basically 5% more.
Yeah, so they'll be slightly
Right.
higher.
But this is just saying what the percent the employee will be paying.
Okay.
So I'll get those,
Not-
I'll
it's
get
not
those exact
giving
numbers to you
The
guys.
other one, okay.
It's
I
not-
just don't want to lose sight of that.
It's not saying that this is the amount, period. It's just the percentages.
I'll send those out for approval, the calculations, yep.
So this inpatient service, outpatient service, therapy, and complex imaging, and x-ray and lab services. It's on the packet she gave you today on page 5. The health employee guide from the previous jurist. Or the plan design that we have not discussed yet. Page 5, you got it, Bill? The urgent care, emergency care, out-of-pocket, all that's been taken care of already, so inpatient service, so let's talk about that, Lauren, real quick. It's 200 to 3,000, that seems like a pretty wide range, and I understand there's different services and that wide range of that, but what about the plan that we're going to? What is, I guess explain that a little bit more to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, for inpatient and outpatient care, the standard is to do deductible and coinsurance. Since you don't, your coinsurance is 100%, so essentially that's not a conversation anymore because they don't pay any of that. So the recommendation would be to have that go towards your deductible. So if you are on the PPO plan and you haven't incurred any costs, your inpatient or outpatient procedure or stay could cost up to the $3,500. Now, if you've already satisfied some of that, you know, you're paying the difference. And it, on the HSA plan, it actually works the exact same because of the deductible function. So it worked the same for both plans.
So we're setting it at 3,000 or 35.
It would be at, yeah, like the maximum. So if you went in for 10 procedures, your all-in risk is $3,500. If you go in for one, your all-in risk is $3,500. I have seen copays on outpatient very, very rarely, but I have seen it. Inpatient stays, you know, I'll be honest, the Surest plan is the only plan I've ever seen that has a copay. And even that is up to $3,000, so it's really not far off, especially a Parkview stay, that's gonna be $3,000. So it's not significantly different, grand scheme. Of course, $500 is $500, I'm not knocking that. But also, if you were on the Surest plan and you had 2 inpatient stays, you know, you could have 2 $3,000 visits. Under this plan, we're capping that risk at the $3,500 because it's not a copay.
So for the inpatient, outpatient, we're just gonna go deductible,
Okay,
and then whatever it falls for that person, correct? So they've already paid in deductible for other things. The max out of pocket they're gonna be paying is 35
yep,
on the deductible.
correct.
So let's go to,
For both in and out.
yes, in and outpatient. We have therapy now, occupational, physical, and speech. Therapy is usually, and Rick can contest with this, therapy is usually done before any surgeries to try to help out, to keep them from going to surgery.
Yep,
Right now, I don't know what we have in our plan. The Surest plan had $10 to $75. So I don't know what it is in the
Yeah.
current plan that we have decided to go to.
so that hasn't been decided. My recommendation for chiro, occ therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy is to pick $1 amount. It's less confusing. And those type of therapies are not insanely different in overall cost. So our ranges were like 10 to 15 to 90. I would say like somewhere in the middle would be perfectly appropriate. Maybe 45. I've seen $45 all day long on copays for those type of services.
But we want them to go to therapy. And you can go to therapy once a week. That's gonna add up very quickly. Someone that's going for therapy for when you have your knee replaced, you go to how many therapies you go for that? For a knee replacement, 3 times you go to therapy?
Lita says yes, she just had one done.
I mean,
My wife's had 2 of them, I don't remember how many times she did go.
and then plus afterwards, yeah, which goes for, yeah, which, we want people to go to therapy. I mean, we want them to do that stuff. That, they don't go to therapy afterwards, they have higher risk of problems, then they're back in the hospital, which we're paying
Re-injury.
more money on the back end. So I
The
think
more you
45 is
can-
too high, in my opinion.
The more you keep co-pays consistent, just the easier it is to understand. So since our PCP visit is 30, then I could propose maybe a $30 therapy visit, because the overall cost is going to be similar to a PCP visit, maybe slightly higher towards specialists, but if you're trying to drive utilization to these therapies versus a procedure, then 100% see where you're coming from, and we could absolutely do a lower dollar amount.
I'll do a lower dollar amount. You do a lot more therapy than you go to your doctor. So I would be more at 20. But,
20?
I mean, because that includes the chiropractor, speech therapy, physical therapy. You know, if we're going to do one thing across the board, it's going to include all that therapy, which almost any, nowadays when you have a procedure, they want you to do the therapy before you go do the procedure. So,
And this will be for everybody.
For the, yeah, so acupuncture
matter
would still
what
not be
plan you're
covered. Chiro, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy.
I mean, and it doesn't matter whether you have a family or anything. Okay.
I'm at 20, but it's up to you. I mean, Bill? Here, I'll just change that for you.
It says 29.
I'm
250, yeah,
going to say 30.
we can sell it at 25. I'm okay with doing 25 if you're okay with it. Yeah. Okay, let's do 25 then.
Okay.
Because I want people to go to therapy. I don't want them to not be going to therapy for that. I mean, it is a big part of keeping people from doing surgeries.
Okay, and are these in-network amounts? When I asked.
Correct,
if it
these
was
are all
network,
in-networks that we're
correct.
talking about,
Okay.
yes.
And
Clarifying.
yeah, so the co-pays don't typically change out of network. What changes are your deductible and out of pocket. So the co-pay would be the same, but
Well, she's asking, so the therapy, if you have a chiropractor that's not in network, it'd still be 25. Is that what you're asking, Susan?
Yeah,
do you want them to match in and
Yeah, I
out?
think just having a match.
I'm asking, I'm asking what you guys are,
I mean, they
because,
said that almost, I mean, when we had PHP here, they said they have a wide network, so it's going to cover a lot of those.
They do, yeah. When we go out of network, we don't have negotiated rates, so the therapist can charge the plan whatever they want, and the employee would still pay 25. So a lot of times, what we'll do in an out-of-network scenario is have it go to deductible. So that employee would be paying the cost of the visit until they got to the deductible. That is your call. Again, it is a very broad network, so they would have to really, people would really have to try to go out of network, but it's possible.
I'm okay with going towards deductible now, out of network.
Or out, okay.
Oh, you guys agree?
Yeah.
So anything that's out of network will go
Deductible.
to deductible.
Great.
I mean, the inpatient, outpatient's already to deductible anyways, so the therapy would just join that, but out of,
so this entire list column here, all of that is, all the amounts are going to the deductible.
For rehabilitative therapies, yes.
for out of network. The inpatient, outpatient's already going to the deductible.
Okay.
Inpatient or outpatient, it doesn't, in network, out of network.
Yes.
That makes sense, Susan?
No, but okay.
When you say routine x-ray and lab, is that preventative stuff? I mean, I know lab work has been a big thing, so I want to make sure we're very clear on this.
All right, let's see. Okay. So on the Surest plan, there was no cost for routine diagnostic tests, so like x-rays, labs, ultrasound.
What is considered routine?
So that is going to be a plan design definition. I would have to get that from Surest. But it's showing like the lower cost diagnostic tests on this So again, X-ray, lab, ultrasound. Complex imaging, that's when you're at MRI and CT scans. So under this plan design, what I'm reading is it's no cost for any X-ray, any labs, any ultrasounds. But 100%, if anyone is telling me differently on how it's been charged, I can get that definition from Surest and see exactly what's routine, and complex makes sense. It's your MRIs, your CT scans.
And then with PHP, what do they consider routine? We're working towards the new plan,
Yep.
sure is, so.
Exactly. So I don't normally see these broken out between routine and complex. Usually it's the same. And it's typically deductible and co-insurance for images and labs, with the caveat that we can incentivize standalone lab facilities and standalone imaging facilities and make those a different tier on their own because they're lower cost to the plan. That would be my suggestion to drive utilization to the lower cost facilities. So rather it being routine and complex that makes it different, it's actually the site of care that makes it different.
So if you use the in-network PHP approved, whatever, lab work, x-rays, MRIs, and CTs.
We would make that lower.
And then if they choose to go to Parkview, which I'm assuming is going to have their own pricing, then it's deductible.
I'm okay with
So what do we want to set the price for the copay for the ones that we want them to go to?
Do we have enough information to be able to decide on these? I mean, if this is normally done in a 3-hour plan design meeting or whatever,
So,
I mean,
yeah, we absolutely have the facts as far as making these decisions. The things that are gonna take forever are saying, okay, under the Surest, you had a 20 visit max for X, X service, or a 30, and we're gonna go through each benefit in and out of, the details.
Okay.
These bigger plan design and generalities, we can absolutely make those decisions here. And when we are looking at that plan design conversation, we can absolutely all do that together, if it makes everyone more comfortable. But typically the goal is to not take anything away, is to match as closely as possible to the current. And things like visit limits, those will be defined under Surest. So we will be able to carry those over. Yes. Yep. They absolutely have that shopping tool.
but for the public, the question was if PHP would have a, online portal or a app for your phone to be able to shop for your prices, and like we currently have with Surest. And yes, PHP does have that
Yes.
ability.
Yep. They have all their negotiated rates with all the different hospitals loaded into that tool. So if it's a deductible expense, of course, you'll still want to get the pre-treatment estimate from your doctor for the public, but you'll be able to see an estimate of cost.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the copay would be for LabCorp, correct?
So LabCorp or a standalone X-ray facility, so like a direct imaging type.
And there's none of those here in Auburn, if correct.
Well, I would have to see if there are any standalone facilities. I know there's not a LabCorp, I know there's not a direct imaging.
Go to DeKalb, Parkview, have it drawn, but then sent to LabCorp to be tested.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Okay.
When I worked in there, that's what we did a lot. We'd send them off to the labs. We would just charge a drawing fee, and then you would send it up.
I think they ended it.
Last I knew.
No, I'm pretty sure they ended that. I don't think we can do that anymore.
Is that, yeah, they used to do that. I should clarify.
We
They
used to do it. We used to do it, but I think they ended that contract, but they may have gotten it back. But last week I said something about checking with the Lutheran facility out here because they may draw a LabCorp out there. You have-
They're no longer drawing labs out there at all.
Oh, they've stopped that altogether? Mm-hmm. Then we used to have a freestanding MRI just east of the hospital. I don't know if that's still there or not.
As long as it's in the network, we could tier that to be in that more beneficial tier, so that we can absolutely have that conversation with
There's a
PHP.
freestanding facility on Getz Road down in Fort Wayne that
Yes.
a lot of people use. I
It's
can't
great,
remember
yeah.
the name of it, but
Direct imaging and, yeah,
yeah, a lot of people use that.
yes, it's a good one. And, you know, if you say your lab is free if you go to direct imaging in Fort Wayne, that's worth the drive to me every time. I understand that it's, you know, I understand it's inconvenient and it's frustrating, but if we're looking at saving the employee money and saving the plan money, which keeps employee contributions in check over time, that's worth that drive to me. And an employee can say, it's not to me, I'm gonna pay for it and go here.
So did you guys decide on a copay on those? Okay.
The caveat I will say is on the HSA plan. The employee must meet their deductible before we can give them those incentives. So if you say direct imaging is free, you can do that right away on the PPO plan. You cannot do that on the HSA plan. They would need to have met their $3,500 deductible before we can incentivize because of the IRS rule for first dollar coverage. So I want to make sure that is also something that we'll explain during open enrollment. So when people are making their choices, they're making the informed choice for themselves.
I understand that.
Yeah, perfect.
I would probably maybe wait on this until we figure out what labs and x-rays are in network that are around this area. If we can get that information. Because that is Jody's brought it up. I've had other people bring it up to the lab work being a big, like, hey, where am I supposed to go for this?
Yep.
Because I don't want our employees getting hit with a big bill all of a sudden, like, hey, I'm just trying to do the right thing, and all of a sudden, I'm kind of screwed here.
Yep.
So
100%.
if we can get the in-network for PHP, for lab, x-ray, and complex imaging. like,
Perfect.
Where's the closest ones in all those facilities, so that way we can make a general idea of
Okay.
what it is. But that's okay with you guys, sorry.
Perfect.
Okay, then we go to mental health and substance abuse services. I'm assuming that's Northeast Center and Bowman, or any other this area?
I could get a list of in-network.
If you can pull that up, please.
Ellen, for the emergency room, the 3,500 in-network, the out-of-network currently has a copay. What was the out-of-network gonna
The
be?
emergency room is 500 copay. We were just looking at inpatient and outpatient services.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant inpatient, outpatient.
It would be whatever your deductible is, which is 35.
For the out-of-network,
Yeah,
both.
out of network's always gonna be the deductible, out of network. For the inpatient, outpatient, and therapy.
okay.
For the out of network. In network, it would be deductible also for inpatient, outpatient, so it's not a change. But with the therapy in network, it's $25. Out of network is deductible.
Got it.
Clear as mud?
Yep, pretty much.
And then she's gonna get back to us on the information for x-rays, lab services, complex imaging. And do you have to get back to us on the mental health, or do you pull that up right now?
I can try to pull it up on the PHP provider search. I'm going to put in,
There's only a handful around here, so.
yeah. I'm going to put in the courthouse address here. See what we got.
Closest lab court are Rock Road.
Yeah, DuPont. DuPont?
And the LabCorp at Walgreens is only open from 8 to 4:30. So if you work here from 8 to 4, or 8:30 to 4:30, it's not super.
I do have the search, so I'm pulling that up now. Yeah, these are pulling through professionals. Here's facilities, okay. Apologies, learning this tool right now. Okay, so Northeastern Center is in network. I think that's the one that you just said. The next closest, there's the Kendallville Northeastern Center in 10 miles, and then we get into north of Fort Wayne, or North Fort Wayne on like Washington Center, Maple Heights Behavioral Health. There are a couple in Auburn.
Parkview Behavioral Health in
It is, yes.
that? Yeah, that covers pretty much.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Parkview Behavioral Health on Beacon Street, yep. So Park Center, Northeastern Center, Maple Heights, yes.
Pretty much all the big ones. When it says mental health and substance abuse services, what is that including, I guess? Is it just having a conversation, having therapy, like
So,
sessions, or is it like inpatient?
yeah, so it's broken out. Office setting would be, you know, just, yeah, office setting. Then you can have telehealth. Then we have outpatient treatment and inpatient treatment. Again, these are typically deductible items. Not an office visit, my apologies, not an office visit. Outpatient and inpatient is typically a deductible.
And so this $15 that the jurist had was for the office visit. And I'm assuming the teleconference
Yeah.
is probably free. Most places offer that free.
I'll get the details from PHP if mental health is included in their telehealth. Now, there's telemedicine and telehealth, which I'm sure you know the difference of, but for everyone's sake, there's like a teledoc type option, and then there's actual telemedicine where you're communicating with your provider over the phone. So there is a difference there. So you could put a copay, and it does typically match the office visit copay. It's not going to cost the county overall. The visit won't be much different in cost. Might be slightly less for telehealth, but typically it's very similar.
Get that information.
So that would be something that's by provider, whether they bill their office visit or their telehealth visit
Yeah,
at
you
different
could just get
rates.
like Northeast Bowman, what that average would be. Because I want people to be able to use that if they need to.
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend a copay for the office setting, mental health, telehealth, and it's currently 15 if you want to keep it at that, just to keep people utilizing their behavioral health.
I'm good with that.
Deductible on the outpatient and inpatient treatments?
Yes, so the outpatient, inpatient, yes. If they're seeing the office setting, then the copay, yeah.
So currently it says out-of-network is 150, so that's all gonna go back, that's gonna be full price and,
Out of network, I would recommend deductible.
We want to put that into the overall plan design so we can see how it all looks. And get the information back on the X-rays, lab services, complex imaging.
So are you saying like you want something like this that the Shurist has,
Yes.
that's broken down? Okay.
Because you have to get that to the employees anyways. So
Absolutely.
I
It
wanna
will
see
be
it.
something, I'll warn you that it will take time for them to generate it after our meeting, but it will be available, you know, for open enrollment, and I'll get it to you guys as soon as I have it in my hands. Anything that we didn't cover?
Else you need, Dottie? We have to start rolling this out here soon.
Well, are we going to continue the wellness program into the following year? No, we only have it, everybody had a year to get in, boom, as of May 31st of this year, for that $50 deduction. So will you want to do the same thing, or do we want to include something else? And that actually was included in the benefits guide from last year.
Yes, and the one thing that I will tell you, we can administer as is this year, but we will want to, for spouses, if we are asking them to participate, they'll need to either get an additional incentive, or we should not require that they have to go through those steps. Does that make sense? So if you say a spouse, and we want our spouses to engage, so my recommendation is absolutely, maybe there's another $25 premium incentive for the spouse. That's only going to be on, if we're looking at our counts, there are 23 employee spouse and 22 families, so 45 spouses who could potentially be impacted by that.
I want time to think about it and go what that looks like.
So we,
I'll make a decision today. I want to think about that and look into it a little bit more, have some more conversations.
do we want to make that decision before open enrollment? Just not today, but before open enrollment? So we can communicate it?
It starts next week.
I'd like to continue it.
But what does that look like? Yeah, we'll have a decision. I just
Okay.
want time to look into it.
Absolutely. Making sure I've got my ducks in a row here.
Okay, what about dental and vision?
Carrie?
Totally.
Voluntary.
That was already voted on, so I think we're in good shape there. And I had told Dottie, but for public sake, I was able to negotiate with Lincoln an additional year on the vision like we discussed, so from 2-year to a 3-year rate hold, and negotiated the spouse amount on voluntary life. Lincoln had proposed that the spouse could go up to 50% of the employee amount, and I got them to take that up to 100%. So the benefit is the same as it is now. The spouse can go up to the same amount the employee has in voluntary life insurance. So those two negotiation points were taken care of.
Anything else?
Well, there's nothing we can do yet until we get, until the plan is definitely, your plan design is all taken care of, and we get things printed. So we'll just wait until we get all of that
So
information.
how soon is that gonna happen?
Pardon?
How soon is that gonna happen?
So we'll need to work with PHP to set up that implementation meeting. And absolutely, they know the deadline, which is open enrollment. So we'll be getting that going hopefully next week, where we set that out. But again, those little line items like number of visits for each, visit limits and things like that, as long as they have the bones of the plan laid out, they can get those summary of benefits out pretty.
You need to have it done next week.
It has to happen.
Yeah, next week. So
Yeah, correct, because the week after that is open enrollment.
yes.
Yes.
You set a day next week?
It's the whole month of June, really.
I was gonna say, I thought open enrollment was June 1st.
Well, yeah, it's the whole month of June. Yep, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
When do you think you'd have that done? We have to approve that, the bones of it and everything, correct? So when do you think you have it done? We have to have another meeting. We have to advertise it.
Yeah, I'll have to get with PHP, but I can absolutely have them give us a date. And I think we lay out the deadline of end of next week.
We need to know by tomorrow what day they're going to be done.
Okay.
Because it's going to take, 3 days to public hear it? 2 days? 2 days. So you have to give us an idea of when they're going to have it next week, so we can get the public meeting to set up. We can get it approved.
Got it.
We had Drainage Board on Thursday, the 5th.
Let's see what they say tomorrow, and then we can get it set up. It's gonna be Thursday or Friday, what they need.
Okay,
That's okay.
all right. You can do it later on Thursday, you just can't do it in the morning, or early morning on Thursday. Probably 10,
We gotta
30.
make sure that they have the information for us on that.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Okay,
Got it.
we all done?
Yep.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.